One of the most anticipated tanks has been added to the War Thunder. I honestly was hoping it would have been added much sooner, but better late than never. I'm talking of course about the Ukrainian BM Oplot. First it was the variant operated by Thailand, and now with the Pakistani variant added to the game, I thought it would be a good time to talk about what has transpired with the tank that has already been added to the game and what issues a lot of players have with the tank and the game itself. You see, the BM Oplot in the game seems very problematic, in the way that the armor appears to be underperforming. A lot of players have noticed that the armor is rather weak on the hull of the tank and have started wondering if that is really the case. Does the tank in reality have such armor? When I first started doing research about this, I thought it will not take me long, as I already had some information about the tank's armor, but a lot of information has surfaced about it since it has been added to the game, as it usually does with War Thunder. And I have found myself trying to figure out what is actually true and what is not. So let me show you what appears to be the problem with the tank in the game and what I have found out regarding the actual protection of the tank in real life. In the game, the tank appears to be pretty weak to the APFSDS shells from the tanks of the similar battle rating, and especially to the ones of higher battle rating. It even has worse protection than the T-80U tank, on which chassis it is technically based on, and which is a much older tank. So what gives? Well, because the duplet explosive reactive armor you use on the tank is very heavy, as it is basically 2 layers of the Ukrainian Duplet ERA, which weighs similarly to the Russian Contact 5, and on top of that, duplet is also very thick. In reality, only the 2 last plates are left on the tank's armor, the textilite and the steel plate, evident by this picture. The ERA module is placed on a 60mm thick steel plate as a separate piece and then installed on the tank, on top of those 2 layers, which is correctly modeled in the game. So it makes sense, right? Less physical armor thickness means it is going to be less effective. Well, this is where the entire controversy starts. Why would anyone make this armor if it makes it less effective than the armor that has already existed for more than 20 years at that point? There actually might be an answer to that, but they will get to it later. Trust me, it will make sense. Luckily for everyone, there is a lot of footage from trials of the Ukrainian Duplet ERA, so we have a lot of visual evidence for how effective the armor is. Well, at least to some extent, because they only tested against older projectiles like 3BM42 Mango. In all the shots fired, 3BM42 obviously did not penetrate the armor of the tank from a distance of 100 meters. This is actually really good because 3BM42 is a segmented projectile, so it can work even better against some ERA. Another test we don't have actual footage of, but we do have documentation of, is a test conducted with a French 120mm gun firing the OFL 120 F1 APFSDS shell. The projectile apparently penetrated only between 20 and 30mm of steel after hitting the duplet on the hull and was destroyed by the ERA. Some of the pieces of the projectile were recovered. In the game, the OFL 120 F1 can actually penetrate the tank on a few spots, and if we look at the armor model during the penetration, it actually penetrates much more than what is documented from the trials. Now, claims have surfaced that the Duplet ERA actually has a 50mm steel plate between the 2 layers of explosive panels, and that this is not modeled in the game. Is there any evidence for it? Well, yeah, but it's not completely reliable. The source of the information comes from Andrei Tarasenko, also known as Andrei BT, who posted some pictures on his Twitter and Telegram channels, but he did not specify where did he get this information, as he usually does not, unfortunately. Some people claim he cannot be trusted because he is not an official source, and some because of his pro-Ukrainian bias. Well, I wanted to check if those claims are true, and in my conclusion, I'm not sure. You see, there are some pictures which could indicate that what he is saying is true. We have some pictures of the top part of the duplet armor block, and there is clearly steel between the 2 slots where the ERA panels would go. In fact, there are several pictures of it, some showing even several thinner plates stacked on top of each other. But this is only the top and left and right side of the armor. If you look at the area between those, which should be located under the driver's periscope, do not obstruct the driver's view. But at the same time, there is no way it is fully the same as the rest of the armor, and we don't have pictures of the bottom area. It could be just the top parts that have this, because they can be thicker. Another question is, are those perhaps hollow maybe? The picture with a lot of stacked thinner plates is claimed to be an early version of the tank, so could they have maybe made those parts hollow? There are a lot of excuses to be made as to why it's possible that this is not true. One of the most daring evidence against such claim is that while the pictures of the aftermath of a detonated duplet panel show that the entire thing all the way to the 60mm thick plate is gone once it detonates. If there was a homogeneous 50mm plate in between the two layers, it would be still there or would show signs of being ripped by the explosion at least. But we see that the entire thing is fully gone. Now, an explanation for this could be that each row of duplet has a separately cut 50mm plate between the top and the bottom layer of explosive panels. And if this is true, how would it actually affect the bottom layer? It is also quite a heavy and big piece of steel. It would probably be hard to blow away by the explosion of the explosive panel. There is so much that is so strange about this that it's really hard to draw any conclusive evidence. I wish I could tell you with certainty there is armor between the two layers or there isn't any, but I can't. I simply don't have enough evidence to draw a real conclusion on this. But I do think that the armor in the game is still underperforming. It should be at least a little bit better, as evident by how much the OFL 120F1 can penetrate it in the game. And TATU's armor being better can be explained by the fact that maybe Ukrainians did not care as much about the protection against kinetic energy projectiles as much against heat threats, because Duplet is pretty decent at stopping heat, even the tandem-shaped heat, which TATU with Contact 5 cannot do. But even so, in real life, I still think the protection against APF SDS would be at least on par with the TATUs, but I believe it should be even better. That would be all. If you like my content, you can support me on Patreon. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a nice day.